Well, good evening, everyone. I'm going to start out the night finishing up stuff from the Wednesday night demonstration for the Worldwide Wood Turning Club. This is one of the pieces that sort of got redone. Well, not sort of. I showed them multiple different colors on this one piece, so it's this piece has been returned and dyed black and then black shellac over top of it to give me a nice smooth surface. And we're going to do this in the electric green. Kind of a neat color. I think I'll do it with my finger rather than the paper towel. This is kind of a wax-based grain filler. Very bright green. Little circles. I'm really trying to push it down into the grain, the open parts of the grain. We'll work sort of in small areas at a time, so we're less wasteful of the material. This does have some areas that's really nice and big open parts that really show out the grain fill. It's kind of a little messy to work with, but it's not really too bad. There's a little bit of a wormhole, or any imperfection that there is, it will fill it in. That's why we can't have any kind of like torn grain or anything like that, because it'll fill that in and highlight it for you. But the surface has to be sealed in some fashion or another, whether it's a spray lacquer or something like that. And it's just, you want the hard bits totally sealed and the softer bits sort of sealed but not sealed. Not filled up, I should say. You want them sealed but not filled. That's why that's the spray, putting it on with a spray. And I use an airbrush to do it. Probably the simplest of the bunch. And we'll go around the whole thing, and I'll probably just flip this. Probably with this one, I'll do this side and I'll flip it around because I got to do the rim. This sort of has a wider type of rim on it, so that will get filled in as well. Looks like we got it pretty well filled in. And give it a spin. And do two things where it's going to help it dry a little quicker. But I'm going to take a paper towel and just kind of lightly go across the surface not putting much pressure on it. I want to get the excess off of the top surface. We're not quite there yet. Still some places where I was a little sloppy like. We can just go around with our paper towel too. It's a little easier to get the good amount off when it's spinning. And then we'll go back and sort of rub out the areas that there's too much. Because I want the black to show through in the other areas. You can even let this set up for several minutes before you do this too. There's some places that's sort of highlighted that's kind of odd. But it will go into pretty much everything. And of course we have some, if we have some places we missed, you can always go back after it. Even once it's dry, I can go back after it for some areas that got too much green bleed over or something like that. If I let this dry for 10 or 15 minutes, I could put a little bit of mineral spirits on the towel and lightly rub over some of it too. But I find it a little bit easier to get it off right now while it's still soft and easier to get off. I think we got it all. I'll just flip it around. We'll do the rim. And you won't be able to see keyboard. Come on, mousey. Mouse don't like to work with gloves on. So there, we'll do the rim. I'll let this sit up for a little while. I have two of them that I did for the demonstration the other night on Wednesday evening, so I'll finish turning them. And this one will come back. Well, I sort of determined the other day I can go back pretty much back after this within a couple minutes and put the shellac on it. And then this could dry till we do the other two. And if I have time, then I could finish hollowing out the inside of this one as well. Always a good day when you can get some projects off the table and get them done. This one I won't spin. I sort of have a jagged edge in there. So if I spin and put my fingers in there with a paper towel, I could end up with the situation I don't really want to have. I was thinking I could finish this tonight, but I can't because I got to spray this. This will get sprayed. That part I'll be able to show you. This will get another coat of shellac over top of this yet. And then it will get 2 or 3 coats of lacquer over top of that yet. And then I'll hollow the inside out and finish it otherwise. How are you doing tonight, buddy? Did you fire up your lathe yet and try anything? And there's the back done and the rim. Now I flip it over. Shouldn't have threw that paper towel away so quickly. A little hard to see sometimes what you're doing when you're doing it in there. We'll do a little bit sitting here. Okay. Well, I certainly didn't get as much done in my 2 days off as I would have liked, but now life is what it is. Throw that glove away because I'll put green on something somewhere. So I just set this one off to the side, and this one can dry. Yes, as you'll see with these other couple pieces that I have, that I did that as a demonstration on Wednesday evening. Black is probably the best color to do that type of, to do the grain filling process with it, because of the contrast. It has to be a darker color than the piece that you're going to do, put it that way. If you were hit, let me switch here. Show you the piece from last week. I did manage to bring that one down. This is the cherry bowl that I did last week. It's about maybe a fat 1/16 of an inch thick wall thickness. Looks pretty good in that view. You can see even in that view that it has gone wonky every which way but loose. As I spin it around, you can see it's no longer round. You can see it's oval even. That's the foot of it. So the oval's foot, if you rub your fingers over it, you can tell that, especially somewhere over in here, there's little like craters and everything else. It's kind of interesting to do them. This bottom is still probably a little bit wet down here. Oh yeah, big time. If we take, see if we can measure it that way. So it's about 6 inches or 150 millimeters, 15. I'm not good with metrics, so we're 6 that way. We're 6.5 that way. So yeah, it has moved a 1/2 inch. It's fun. If I got time tonight, I'll show you another one that I've been playing with. It's very similar to this. It's a tube. If you watch any of the YouTube videos, watch some of the stuff that Richard Raffin is doing with the tubes. They're really quite interesting. Here's the other one from Wednesday. This is one we're going to hollow out and we'll finish the inside of it. As soon as I switch over different chucks. This one was done with the blue. The black and the blue. That one I'm pretty sure that I did not. I think I just dyed that and then put the shellac on it. And did not do the black shellac. So it's not quite as black as the green one I just showed you. The green one has black dye to start and then dyed black shellac. I just mixed my own I just put a little bit of black dye in with the seal coat type of shellac. So this one's sort of a, since it is ash has sort of yellowish brown to it, as well as a little bit of lighter color. So this one has more, this one's more brown and such as that. But this has its coats of lacquer on this. The outside of this and the rim are complete. It just needs the center of the bowl taken out. So that's what we'll do. Find which way the grain's running. So I want the grain to run up and down with the chuck jaws. Yeah, that blue really pops out. I actually have a couple different blues. I think that was the one I used that I like the best. Of course, it's also one that is no longer being made, of course. These companies got to decide they're not going to no longer make things. So now we're going to get to some turning. And we are going to, first off, go sharpen a couple bowl gouges. I think that one's actually sharp. So I'll sharpen my small one anyhow. The two small ones. I was doing some rough turning yesterday. That one's sharp. Because as things would go, I should learn to stay away from Marketplace. Huh. I don't think so. Why is my grinder camera not on today? That's interesting. I didn't look at that one. I turned the computer on. Very interesting. The old trusty unplugged, replug. That didn't work. It beeped at me. I guess I'm not going to be able to show you. Oh well, you've seen that before. It's not overly exciting. Life in Pain. How does my audio sound tonight? I had trouble with that the other night for some reason. It was not cooperating. And I did a hard reset on the headset. Okay, thank you. We'll see when we turn the dust collector on, because I'm sure I'm going to have to use the dust collector, because this is now dry ash, which is normally quite dusty. So I'll sharpen my two main bowl gouges. These are both going to be 1/2 inch. Yes, I do. Yeah, I have the... there's a noise canceling one, which is all part of... That's part of OBS. And that one you really don't adjust. It's sort of its own thing, I guess you would call it. And then there is some, let's see, what's the other two called? The limiter and something else, which are both adjustable. But I sort of have them on the default settings. I don't know what beyond me the other night why it did what it did. Never had any issues with that. But normally when I'm streaming, I'm turning and doing things like that, and I have my face shield on. So for whatever reason, it was, it's always got to act up when something has to act up when you don't want it to. Gotta get my live center out here. Otherwise, I will bang my elbow into it. And I'm pretty sure we're gonna need some dust collection. So let me get that set in a place that hopefully doesn't impede too much. Like I say, this one is ready to go. Try it without the dust collector on first. This one actually is running nice and true, which is what it should be, but it doesn't always, this stuff wasn't quite as dry as I thought it was. I was turning all wet wood yesterday, as in seriously wet. That was the issue. That was the hold up in my progress yesterday. Mostly. Yeah, normally what I do with them is turn them to about an inch and a quarter thick, wall thickness. Put them in, my method of drying is putting them in a paper towel or paper grocery bag, and then I'll let them sit over, it's over in my family room here in the basement, which is heated and also has a dehumidifier. And they'll sit in that bag for 8 months to a year. A lot of times it's more like when I get back to them, which is about that time frame. Right now I have a pile of them that are ready to be finished turned. And then I'll come back and re-true up the outside and go to the inside. I'm really quick about what I'm doing tonight. I could actually maybe get to one of them. I doubt it, but maybe. So we're going to bring it back up to speed. This one is running nice and true. The one, actually I think the one I just took off the lathe the other night, it did not run true at all. Which is not really a big deal unless it is something you're going to make thin, like that other one. And we are going to need a dust collector. This stuff is terrible. There's a lot of them that are that way though. So now we'll see whether the audio is going to work. All I'm doing is get myself some room to move. I'm going to leave the center in there as long as I can, or at least some of it. Sort of undercut the rim a little bit. And then we should make a nice curving sweep. This one does not need to be super thin. I had to guess we could be a little thinner than that. We're probably still a ½ inch thick. I just want to make sure where I was at on this rim, because when I'm coloring them and doing all that other stuff, I want to make sure I take enough off that I don't have some sort of weirdness there or something like that. And get rid of a little bit more material. It's actually, ash is nice to work with. There's a lot you can do with it. Trying to make that curve is probably the hardest part about these. Because I need to drop the handle down quite a ways. And I don't necessarily need to be cutting in that direction. I could make all my cuts going inward that way, but my cuts going in that way sure throws the chips off to my right. This way it's throwing the chips sort of back towards me and down to the ground. So it's a little easier to clean up. That's really the only. And I'm also preserving the edge of the tool. The tool rest is a little bit low. Just a shade. Because when the tool's level, I want it to be right on center. And those chips coming off of there, once the wood is dry like that and ash is pretty hard, reasonably hard, they actually can be hot. That's why you see me open my hand up so that they go underneath my hand. I generally don't measure these. I do need to go back up and make another little cut up here. Not quite as, left some ridges right there. But since it is ash, I'm not sure whether this has any. I may be able to use a scraper on it. This is a negative rate scraper. I have a very light touch because it will or can cause some vibration, which it is sort of vibrating a little bit. So that could make it worse yet. Thank you for the follow. I can't read in purple. Kevin. Oh, wow. Oh, and a sub yet to go with it. Oh, thank you very much. That's something I don't see much of. I still have some ridges that are in there. Don't like that. See if I can get it to raise a burr just by the hone. Let's see if it slowed the speed down somewhat. I turn at a pretty high, pretty fast pace. Really what I'm doing now is just, I'm trying to lessen my sanding. I'm not really trying to make the shape with that. I'm just trying to lessen the amount of sanding that I have to do. I mean, your fingers tell all. Me just running my fingers over there, I can feel it starts right about there. There's a little bit of a lump. It's not a... Oh, yeah. I don't know. That's the, to me, that's the name of the game, is to do less sanding. I'll just make a small cut. Small, lightweight cut. The whole way down. And go at a nice slow pace so the tool cuts cleaner. And that feels pretty good. That maneuver right there is not necessarily the best thing to do. This edge right here is actually fairly sharp. That's pretty good. If I had to guess, I would say about 3/8 of an inch, maybe. Maybe a little less, a little more. I gotta watch because this is shallow. So what we're gonna do from there is we're gonna remove the entire rest of the middle. And then we'll go from there, even things up. You know, move the tool rest while the thing's running. Actually, I probably should get the longer one. Make life a little easier. Yeah, it'll go over past the center line, which is a good place for it to be. I want to be cutting on center. You can raise that just a little bit. Now we can get rid of the rest. For some reason that sounds like it could be thin. It shouldn't be. No. Just a little extra noisy for some reason. This is an older, well, actually it's actually quite old, Sorby bowl gouge. This one's actually grounded a little bit steeper of an angle on the nose than the one I normally use. It's just kind of a, something, you have something like that that's a little bit older. That's the one I'm going to play around with to change the bevel angles, maybe change the shape of it. Because pretty much the rest of the stuff is all Thompson lathe tools. which is what I'll go back to right here, has a shorter bevel one. What I do with them is you can see there's a difference in that. In here, I've removed a fair amount of the heel down to about 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little more, right on the nose. It's going to allow me to make a curve, a tighter curve with the same gouge. And we're going to stop and check. I'm just using my fingers on this. In this case, got a hump right there. Why do I have a hump? I feel that earlier. That's bad. This will probably want to vibrate up here. I put my hand on the back side and just give it just a little bit of a force, because it'll make my fingers quite hot quite quickly. I think I've got it. I'll just bring the center across, because this doesn't have another, gotta remember that, because it does not have, a lot of times I have a foot. This one does not really have a foot. So this is one you could easily make a funnel out of. And we definitely don't want to do that. I think we're good. Or not. Let's see what the big bowl scraper will do on it. Not sure whether that has much of a burr left either, but I'm going to try it. I have definitely have some places that I'm not moving in a necessarily a good flowing line. Once again, all I'm doing is removing some places that have little bumps. It can come back to haunt you, because it can decide it's going to want to left some vibration marks in there. That's pretty much it on the turning part of it. So now we'll give it a sand. A couple things out of the road there. Yesterday's project was supposed to be do all the I started out, there was 8 walnut bowls to do, rough turn. They were all green wood. And like I say, I got on Marketplace, and like 15 minutes away, I think it was, 15 or 20 minutes away from me, the storms that we had earlier this week here were not kind to some trees. There was a lot of trees got blown over, or the weight of the snow and all that good stuff. I'm going to try it with the 3-inch. How are you tonight? So I saw a bunch, well, I know the traffic report and everything else was talking about all the places that there was trees down. A bunch of trees on the highway and stuff like that. I think it was Tuesday. We got snow. And it was a real wet, heavy snow. Well, not too bad. Didn't get enough done, but that's like every day's off. But so I looked on, I'm always looking on Marketplace. It's kind of my favorite pastime at work. I now have a job where I can look at my phone and look at that kind of stuff quite regularly through the day. But I saw this one yesterday, and I was at home. And no place there yet I got to get. So I replied to them, and shoot, within probably a couple minutes, they actually replied back, because I've tried some other people in the last umpteen weeks, and it's like they never want to get back to you. Or if they get back to you, it's like not till like the next day or something like that. These people got right back to me, and I asked them if they knew what kind of wood it was, because I'm certainly not a tree expert. And they weren't really a tree expert either, but they knew that it gets some berries on it, they said. They really looked like little, I don't know, something or other. And the guy told me that he looked it up and he said it was elm. And I'm like, okay. I said, elm's a good wood for turning. So I went down and got, took the chainsaw, went down and to their place and got a truckload of wood. Well, I really shouldn't say it necessarily a truckload. I got 9 pieces. Of course, 9 pieces standing on end pretty much fills up the bed of my truck. They were all about 18 inches in diameter or something like that. Really didn't measure them. And of course, it was a living tree. I mean, the tree wasn't dead. So they're quite heavy, especially for an old man. So 120, 180, 240. So that was a couple hours yesterday of unscheduled things to do rather than just turn my things that I needed to. They are soaking wet. I'll show you one of them here and get this sanded up. I turned one of them yesterday. Well, I won't show you the one I turned because that one's already put away. I'll show you half a log. But yeah, they're 18 inches in diameter, and I cut them about 17 inches long, thereabouts, because that's what my chainsaw, I have a 20-inch bar chainsaw. That's the length that the bar will cut long ways through a log. So that's pretty much what I cut the logs at. And then I split them in half with the chainsaw, with the grain. Makes a wonderful mess. If I do that in my backyard, but and so I got home yesterday from there. I think it was pushing 3 o'clock or so. So I didn't, and of course we had snow, and there's still some snow on the ground. So it's kind of comical. Because I didn't, if it's a nicer time of the year or whatever, I'll just drive my truck straight down to where I cut them at. I have a 4-wheel drive truck, so I just, as long as the ground's not soft, I'm going to mess up the yard or anything, I just drive right down to it, roll them off the back of the truck, and away we go with the chainsaw. But since there was snow on the ground, and I wasn't sure that, I didn't want to mess up my yard either. So I'm like, I come home and I was all kind of cockeyed in my driveway. My driveway is double width. I got really cockeyed in the driveway, and I rolled them right off the back of the truck onto the ground. And there's a little bit of, right where I rolled them off, actually, there was no snow. But further back in my yard, there was still snow. It was only about 1 inch or so deep. And wet, of course, because the weather was nice yesterday. But I'm like, I should be able to roll them down to where I want them to be. Easy enough. So I did. And the first one I rolled down through the yard, picked up all the snow, the 1 inch of snow or so that was left behind. You picked that up. So I got down to my pile where I keep the logs. That sucker was about 6 inches bigger than what it should have been. Looked like a miniature snowman. And when it The only reason I knew how much it was on it is because when it banged into the logs down there, it fell off. But it created a beautiful path that looked like somebody shoveled down through the yard. It's quite neat. Because my wife come out later on to see what I was, how much I brought home is really what she was after. And she wanted me for something else. So it's like, she goes, "Did you shovel a path down through the yard?" I said, "Nope." I said, "That was the first log that went down through the yard. It looked like a snowman when I was done." It's kind of neat. And it made a beautiful path because I rolled I had 9 of them, so I rolled 2 or 3 more down. And I sort of got tired of bending over and rolling them. So I got my hand cart out. And now I had a nice path for the hand cart because it would have, if I got off in the snow with that, then it did the same thing. It wanted to roll it up on the wheels. So it actually worked out pretty nicely. I did have the saw, so I did, can never resist that temptation to, cut one of them. I cut one of them in half and made sure I got the pith out of it. And I brought all the pieces up here, up in my shop. And I turned one. I turned one of the bowls. And did a natural edge because at this time of year the bark should stay on. We'll see, but it's got some nice color to it. It's sort of it's a brownish, goldish brown color. It's sort of a bigger open grain, just like the ash would be. So if it's something that I wanted to do this process on, I could do it. I wouldn't do it on a natural edge piece, but on a flat rim piece I could do it. I did the one yesterday was a natural edge, and more so because of the fact that it has a really bright white sapwood ring on it. So it looked quite neat. One of these Saturdays, I think I did the other Saturday, but to do some rough turning and stuff like that, it's quite interesting, especially when it's like that. I mean, that piece is sopping wet. The water was literally running down the flute of the gouge. You definitely want to stay out of the line of shower of chips, or you will be very wet. It's one of the reasons I don't do it on stream, because I have to move this camera that's looking down. Excuse me. Is pretty much straight down. So that thing was flinging water. So I didn't want that on my camera. This is a Parfix 3408. This is the majority of what I use to finish with. Natural wood finish. It doesn't work with this outside part, or the grain filling part. Just trying to get the dust off of that out there. Yeah, like I say, this stuff is dusty. So we'll activate it. 12 to 18 inches away. Not up close and personal. As you can see, you didn't see the can. I just sprayed a nice little mist in there. And this has a 24-hour cure time. So this won't get done until another day this week. At which point it will get... damn. It will get buffed on the inside. Actually, first thing will be... I have a vacuum chuck. So I will put it in the vacuum chuck, take a tenant off, finish up the bottom, and then the whole thing gets buffed. And then it'll be finished and ready to go for another day. Thank you. Wrong chuck. I have to go get I'm gonna have to take a little break and go get a bottle of water. This in here is sort of a simple hollow form to do. Let's put it that way. It's gonna have a big opening. It's the same process I did on the other one, sort of. This one has been burnt with a torch, scorched with a torch, and then a brass brush to what do you want to call it? It removes some of the soft grain. It still leaves it open, but it removes it. So when you rub your fingers across this, you feel every one of those ridges. It was done the same way as the green one I showed you. It had the dyed black shellac over top of it. It's a purple grain filler. It had another coat of shellac over top of the grain filler, and then 2 or 3 coats of. Yes, it brings out the texture and the grain. Don't feel bad. I'm right there with you. That tenant is actually not quite what I want it to be. I mean, it's going to grip it okay, but it's actually a little bit further close than what I would like. About 1/8 of an inch gap in there. This will work. I'll be right back. I'm going to go get a bottle of water. Once again, this is ash. Again. No. I don't need to be holding things, and I still can't type. I failed that class in school. Big time. Mm-hmm. It's better. Oh, I was going to show you. I put that on there. I was going to show you the elm log. Well, I'll show you what. Where's it at? There it is. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of really uneventful as far as the grain and whatnot. But you see it has the big grain. This is off of that log. Because what I did, the log was big enough that I took this 3-inch section out of the center of the log so that the 2 halves were a little bit smaller, a little shallower. And of course, then I get nice little blocks like that. That's actually wood glue on the end to seal the end up, to slow the drying process down. And it's pretty much dry. There's multiple ways of sealing the ends up to keep them to slow it down. What inevitably I do when you seal the ends, whether it's one of the commercial ones or something, paint, wood glue works pretty good because it actually will soak it into the grain. It forces this piece of wood to lose the moisture through the sides rather than out the end, because when it loses it out the end, it loses it quicker, and that's where the cracks come from. So they tell me, and it does work. I've done it that way for a very long time. But that little block of wood, to actually get it to dry, or to be totally dry, I should say, that little block of wood right there will take about 4 years. Unless you do something to it to speed it up. aka microwave, toaster oven, something along that line. That would be a piece to do like a maybe like a lidded box or something like that out of it. I wouldn't, right now at this point, I wouldn't do anything with it other than seal the ends and let it go for probably at least a couple months or something. Guess we can go to strictly the end view because this is pretty much going to be all. Just thinking, maybe it won't be. Let's think about that a second. Let's just leave it there for the moment. It gives you an idea. If I leave it under both views, you can see a little bit more of what I'm doing with the tool. I think, put it that way. So right off the bat, we're going to get rid of this extra lump up here, which is actually another tenant. And I'm going to bring up some dust collection because it is ash as well. So it's going to be just as dusty as the last piece was. So if I go straight in, that way I'm cutting into the side of the tree rather than when I go across, I'm cutting into end grain. This way I'm cutting into all side grain. Makes the cut a little bit easier. Yeah, it works. Now the green, when I do the bowls in a green fashion, I use the paper bag. Some people do the same thing with a bowl or something like that too. I just don't. If you do that with a bowl, for one, those end grain sealer products have gotten quite. I feel that they've gotten quite pricey over the years. You used to be able to buy that stuff for less than $20 a gallon. Now the main brand that you would see a lot of is Anchor Seal, and that's up to like $40, $40 or $45 a gallon. Well, you can go through a lot of it in a hurry. And the latex, you can get the latex paint cheap. Right. Right. The climate can certainly can speed it up as well as slow it down. I mean, I'm here in the U.S. and the difference in the climate for me versus somewhere south of me or something like that, or, can be, like you say, it can be very drastically different. Humidity. All of my logs, the stuff that I get and would be in, half logs. I don't keep logs, full-size logs around because they will crack quicker. Although I do have some walnut right now that's in logs that are about, I don't know, 5 feet long. But I was giving them that way. So I just left them like that. So when I want to do something with one of those logs, then I go out and cut off several inches to get below the cracks. And we're nowhere near the bottom. And then cut whatever blanket that I want out of it. Generally, it's going to be a bowl blanket out of something like that. I don't think I want to take a whole lot. I want to leave some weight in the bottom because we're going to have to probably use. I'm going to actually have to use the hollowing tools to get back in here. I'm going to leave some mass down there for now. And I think we'll get our hollowing rig out. Put a couple of things there away for the moment. This is probably one of the easier hollow forms to do, for sure, because it's a big opening. I'm not going through a little hole. Come on. I do have to put the curved bar back on. And I think before I even put that on, I'm going to go give it a quick little sharpen. Because I know I did a hollow form a couple of weeks ago, and I know I didn't sharpen it after the fact, I'm sure. These are just sort of these are a high-speed steel cutter. These are not really these are not a metalworking cutter. These are just a high-speed steel. The guy that makes this is Trent Bosch, and he just uses he gets like a round bar stock in high-speed steel and makes the cutters out of them. So what I'm going to do is set the cutter in the bar, and it'll attach. And I want the cutter at a slight downward angle. Makes it less aggressive. I'm going to need a handle for it. Something like this actually should be really quick because it should Of course, I say that, and it'll be should eject the chips. Where when you do a hollow form where you only have a small hole, then the chips have nowhere to go. It does have a laser to set the depth gauge. And you'll be able to see that. So I'm going to lay that. It's actually easier if I bring it back and actually smash it right down into slide it underneath the tool itself. And right now we're sitting at 1/8 of an inch. We don't want to be at 1/8 of an inch. So I can move, this laser has two little set screws, or two little Allen screws on the, that allows me to move it around, which is quite neat. I'm going to try something while we're playing. I never really, I mean, I did the class with them. I should move that out a little bit. I can never remember where he told me. So our cutting action is going to happen right about here, and we're going to be tilted over more so like that. But don't do this enough to be very good at it. I should do more of it, but I think I'm going to bring it for the moment, because first thing I'm going to do is get right up underneath this rim and get straight out into here. I'll be able to see what it's doing, so I'm going to leave it at that. So this, the round part of the curved part of the bar has to be beyond the tool, beyond the rest. Otherwise, it will make it very nasty. Because if you were going to do this by hand, which you can, I could just get rid of the elbow and use the tool rest and do all this by hand with these tools. That's a whole nother scenario of a skill that I have never, I guess you want to call, never mastered. I'm going to bring my speed down more so, because this kind of reacts better with slower speeds. And it cuts in both directions. I don't have to go in just one direction because the tip is sharp all the way around. So I'm just working on this area right here, trying to get out for that. And trying to keep it round. Like I say, this is kind of the ultimate way of doing these. There is other tools that you could use. I even have some other tools I could use to reach around that corner. I'll stop and take a look. Like I say, this is really This is nice hollow form kind of work. Hollowing kind of work because you can, I'm able to look in and see what I'm doing rather than having to just watch the laser. I was more interested in what I was doing thickness wise up here. Because to me, that's kind of a hard place to set the laser. To get really super tight in there. The laser's wanting to drop off right there. But I can feel, I guess it's all right. Feels all right. It's about a quarter of an inch thick right there, which is about where I want it to be finally. We get to there. So I think we'll just keep on going. And I'll keep moving my tool rest a little bit closer each time. I just don't want to be back here because that has more than enough force. It's going to try and turn the tool over, especially if you were doing it by hand. I think I'm going to move that a little bit. Absolutely. I've done some small stuff freehand, but success rate is not, for me, is not necessarily there. I'm going to move it over to there. And most of what I did freehand would be like Christmas ornaments or something like that. Something small. I don't have a boring bar that like this to be able to get in something that small. For those, I am doing freehand. But it's only a little itty bitty piece of wood. It's challenging. It's a lot of, most of the people that do a lot of that stuff talk about, it's all in the sound and the feel and all that stuff. And it's like, yeah, okay. Yeah, I understand what the sound is when I go through the side. And usually you can hear it before you go through the side. It sounds like a crispy potato chip or something like that right before you go through the side. Even on a bowl, something like that, if you go through the bottom of a bowl or something along those lines, you'll usually know it before it goes through because it changes, the pitch of the sound changes, and you know that's when you're in trouble. It still feels very thick out there. We're getting there. The laser, oh, it's not ready to drop off quite yet. The wonders of this curved tool is once you get used to it, is I can come back and cut across this bottom, and I'm about ready to run into that area. I don't want to get too carried away there. But I just get some of it out of there. Since this has a big hole, the chips are not binding up around the tool either. The vase I did the other week, I mean, that's all you get done doing is stop and clean out the chips. Stop and clean out the chips. Of course, it cuts faster because that's generally going to be something that's not dry. And it wasn't dry. Actually, that piece is down here now. I think that was like 3 weeks ago when I did that one. That went in a piece of brown paper, and that's been upstairs ever since. I'm kind of curious to put it back onto the truck to see what kind of movement it has. Because it definitely has some. It definitely has sort of an organic kind of a shape to it. I'm going to put it that way. It doesn't really show that it went real oval. But the places that are where the figure is at, it dried in different, I don't know what you want to call it, dried in different fashions. We're getting there. It feels nice, and it feels, by my fingers, it feels pretty consistent going out through there. It's just this very point out here, and that's where any of these that I've done in that kind of a shape, out here is where we can get in trouble, because I'm only looking at this tiny little bit, like a half an inch wide, right here in this curve. And if it's a little thicker out there, I'm not that fussy about it. Would like to get it. The laser is getting elongated, so it's about ready to drop off. So according to this, 3/8. So we're going to be between 1/4 and 3/8. Closer to 1/4 when it drops off out there. That's probably take a little bit more off of it and hope for the best. Just trying to make it like a nice sort of flowing curve out through there, which is to me is very difficult with the small cutters. I do have a teardrop scraper that once I get this thing more so down to what I want it to be, then I'll use that one. I will use that one freehand. I don't put that in the setup to do that one. Now the question is, do we want to do oh, I wonder that was acting weird. I was cutting above center. This thing has a post that goes down through it, and I didn't realize I didn't have that quite where I wanted it. Cutting above center out there, that doesn't matter. My laser doesn't really show up on the screen. The laser is hitting way down here on the side of the bowl. It's very elongated. It's no longer a dot. It's elongated, so we're getting real close to that thickness that we're looking for. According to my fingers, it feels pretty good. So, like I said, I can go back and clean out some of this in the middle this way. This is really cheating because now I can see actually what I'm doing. I'm not used to that part. Actually, what would be easier to do, rotate that back out of the road. Grab one of the handles. Because there is a straight bar that goes with this set. That one I normally use freehand, although I did use it the other week not freehand. I put it in the captured system because I was really concerned at the base of the vase that I did that day. This one I can just get close. This one will allow me, this one will be freehand. Oh, yeah, good. This is short enough. I don't have to take the tailstock off. But this will go in and go right to center point. I can literally push it straight in, and it will literally drill a hole in there. This one feels like it should have went to the grinder first too. So the only advantage here would be to put, if I put it in the laser or in the captured part, I could use the laser. You got about 3/4 of an inch to go down there, at least according to the pencil. So we'll get some more of that out. And that should be good enough there. And I should be able to do the majority of the rest of it. With the curved one. So that way we can keep things where they should be. We're going to be down in there. Bring the tool rest a little closer. The less that bar hangs over, the less vibration it has. Of course. So now we sort of want to set this. We're going to cut down along that edge. This is probably educational for me to do some of these, because I'm going to bring it over more so in the front of that tip. I'm going to try with that. So yeah, we're elongated. So we're at our final thickness there, and of course, once we get back up in here, it's way up on top. If you can see you can sort of see the laser dot. It might. Let's see if I put my towel underneath it, whether it'll give it a better contrast. You can see it better. Not really. I'm not trying to make big cuts. These are not meant to make giant size quarter-inch cuts or anything like that. They're just and now all I'm doing is trying to watch the laser. And I want to do it sort of in stages, just like I would do a bowl or any of that kind of stuff, where I'm getting down to where I want to be out there. I better stop and get rid of them chips. This is much easier than an actual hollow form. Especially since I can go in there. Well, this one's a little bit. This is different because this you're going to actually be able to stick your, and be able to see in there and stick your fingers in there. So this will have to be a lot nicer. Right out in here, I got a really bad transition point because I cut down and I stopped and I left some giant sized humps out there. So we'll go back nice and gently and just sort of kiss the surface and sweep back and forth across it. Exactly. Yeah, the camera really isn't picking it up very well. Let me see what happens. I bring that in closer. Not that close. Move it over just a hair. Yeah, that shows it better. I don't know that it's still going to show you when it becomes elongated. So that feels better. There's still not, it's still certainly not a perfect start to sand kind of a finish right there, but we'll do that with the teardrop scraper one by hand. I'll go in there and try and make it a nicer, smoother surface. And this certainly can be certainly wouldn't hurt a piece like this to be a little heavier on the bottom. A little thicker, a little heavier. Keep some weight down there, make it more stable. But I need to get down a little bit further. I have my hole that I did. Oh, you're quite welcome. I hope you're learning. That makes me feel good that you're learning something. Here I'm sort of cheating because I'm not looking at the laser. I'm actually looking in the hole because I can see in the hole. This is something you normally don't have that luxury. It's kind of a neat part of this type of a setup. As you saw, all I did was I just move the tool completely out of my road. It's on these arms, so it's kind of neat. I do have another hollowing system that one of these days I'm just going to up and sell it. So it looks like our bottom is about probably a half an inch thick from the face of the jaws up to my eraser. I'd call it a half an inch, maybe a little bit thicker than that. I think what I'm going to do is take the long bar off. I'm going to show you this other scraper that I probably should just take the couple seconds out. This is just a simple teardrop scraper. When I put it in, I'll tilt it over a little bit on its side, so it makes it a lot less aggressive. Looks like I already honed on that some. And that takes a different size Allen wrench, of course. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go over to the grinder and I'm going to sharpen this real quick. This is one of them grinding jobs that you may not necessarily like to watch because there's no other. I think there is some people out there that are making some jigs or something or other to hold these little teardrop scrapers. I don't own one, so this is my fingers holding onto this little thing. See whether I got the angle set right. Nope. This thing does not have very much of an angle to it either. Because in this case, if it had the more of an angle it has, the more aggressive it will be. So it's really almost a 90-degree. But from something this small, it's almost very, very difficult to get it. And I'm trying not to change it too much from what it was originally. I think that's all my. Maybe get it to go a little bit more. If we got it that time. Yep. Doesn't take very long to get it sharpened once you get it the right angle. Not a big area to sharpen, really. And it can spin this around in multiple directions, one would say. Once you drop it, at least it didn't go in a pile of chips that I had to hunt for it. What I've been doing with it is making it sort of a little bit longer on this side over here and flatter. You can spin it the whole way around and just use the little point down there too. It's kind of a, I don't know, it's kind of a versatile little tool as far as this hollowing stuff goes. And I already have the platform set for center, and all these tools are pretty much made the same, so this wheel should be cutting right on center. This one I can manipulate a little bit or a lot more because the handle, I have the handle movement. It's a laser out of the camera's road there. There we go. I haven't had to do anything really drastic on me, which is a plus. Because now I'm going to go, I will do the entire inside. I probably will start down here in the bottom. This thing is tucked up underneath my arm. Very gentle, very methodical kind of movements with it. And since we have a bigger area that we're utilizing the cutter on versus the small ones, I'm able to get a much nicer, smoother surface. Of course, some of this surface right in there, in the bottom of this, I could actually go in there with my other traditional type of scraper and clean that up. Because it's got a big opening. Somebody's always going to stick their fingers in there and run their fingers around to see what it feels like, aka another wood turner. And I would do the same thing. Somebody hands me something like that, that's the first thing I'm going to do is put my fingers on the inside, because I know that's the hardest place to get it sanded and to get it finished up. Back that up just a smidge. There again, this tool would let you know in a hurry if I got back there on that rounded part, it will flip it right over. And when it flips it over, it ain't going to be fun. What'd I do to you? Stuck it right in front of the camera. Now look at the other camera for just a minute, because I need to be able to get underneath that. Just because it's a scraper doesn't mean that it's not taking a fair amount of material off. As you saw the amount of chips that come out of there like that, it removes more material than what you would ever give it credit for. Not that I would want to hollow a whole thing out with something like this, but now I'm going to work on this very bottom. Well, these have their specialty purpose. And like I say, in something like this, I could have done a lot more of this work with more traditional type of tools as well. I mean, granted, I could have went full depth with my bowl gouge. I could have actually cut underneath some of this, a little ways back underneath with the bowl gouge, and then you still need some sort of a hook tool type tool to actually get back underneath that rim. But it could have been done with this. This would have worked just as well. Get that out of the road. This would work just as well. I mean, it's still sort of a specialty kind of a tool, because this would have allowed me to sneak back underneath that rim and get all that stuff out of there. So, I mean, it's, you know, then I would have been doing it strictly by hand without the laser. But yes, it could be done. There's multiple ways of doing a lot of this stuff. Left a ridge right there. Let me get rid of that ridge, and I'm going to actually go back to a more traditional for the very bottom down there. Because I don't have kind of, I don't do enough of it with that tool to get, now there I did actually, got better. So another one of them things of, the more you use it, the more you use something, the better you get with it. Maybe I can blend that in a little bit more. We are going to sand all that, but just like I said on the bowl, if I can eliminate some of the sanding, I'm going to do it for sure. I don't want to start. I don't want to sand. I don't want to have to start below 120 grit. That's always my goal. I just did help my dad and finished up a bowl that he did, and we actually had to start with 80 grit because there was big tool marks and torn grain and things that required really coarse sandpaper. And I think right now, I think we're at the sanding stage. I'm going to go hang this up. I got to take the handle off. That's kind of the nice part of this setup for this hollowing system is it's extremely easy to set up because you really only set it up one time as far as the height of where the cutters are going to cut. And the stop collar on there, you go from there. So that was one of the things that sort of attracted me to it. Like I say, I do have a different one that has a big D handle type of a hollowing system, but it doesn't necessarily work well for me because I'm about 2.5 feet from a concrete wall here where my lathe is sitting, and that one requires more room. So that one just never didn't totally work inside there for me. Maybe we can cheat a little bit. That would be golden if, or will a 2-inch one get in there better? I can get it because I want a pound. Yeah, that'll work. So we'll go 2-inch instead of 3-inch. Or in this case, 2 3/8. This is an oversized setup here. Not quite sure how I'm going to get up underneath that rim, but I'll try and figure something out there. I think first order of business, let me get the rest of the chips out of there. So, like I say, 120 paper, slower speed down considerably. We're down about less than 500 RPMs. Let the drill do the work. I'm actually going to be able to look like I'm going to get fairly far out into that corner. Because this part probably up underneath this rim, I'm probably going to have to do by hand, the hand sandpaper. I still have a little dimple right in the middle. Not for long. When you stop the lathe and go right across the dimple, then it goes away. Another simple, valuable lesson. You got the dimple in the middle. It's not really a... No, I can see this is going to be another problem child. A lot of these guys would pick up an air hose, but I'm not starting the compressor tonight just to do that little bit. Hold on, Mike. I'm more apt to go get the shop vac than the air compressor. Get my piece all dirty, but it's totally finished, so it's not an issue that I'm covering this in dust. Probably one of the other issues would be take some 220 sandpaper and let's knock that edge, knock this inside edge off a little bit. That outside edge right there was actually very sharp. Inside edge could be just as sharp. So that was our 120. We'll go to 150. And the 120 got rid of all the tool marks. So now I won't stand as long with each of the other grits. Although I don't know how I'm going to get the sawdust out each time. There won't be as much sawdust because I'm not going to be removing as much material. We're just kind of refining the surface in there. And I'm trying to get out there as far as I can. I'm sanding right out to about there. And we'll just progress through the grid. It was 220 or 240, whichever it is. And I go across to the right, and then I come back across to the left. And as I'm doing it, when I go to across to the right, I'm sanding at the top. When I come back, I'm sanding at the bottom. It's pretty much just like a lot of people tell you you should stop the lathe and you should sand one direction forward, the next grid or whatever in reverse. This is kind of like the best of both worlds because it's sort of doing the same thing as if you stopped it and turned it the other way. And you didn't need to stop and turn it the other way. And don't bang into the side as you bring a drill back out. So that was 320. And I'm not pushing hard on the pad. I mean, I am compressing it somewhat, but I'm not trying to smash it down to nothing. All that does is wear the pads out. It doesn't make it stand any better. So 400. That was 400. We'll go to 600. That's going to be more than enough for inside. That's a nice, it's not perfect, that's for sure, but it certainly is smooth to the touch. That's really mainly what I'm after. So now we got to do from basically from that point there down to the edge of this rim. And we're going to do that by hand. I'm going to slow the speed down even more yet. We're going to be at about 350 or 400 RPMs because I don't want to incinerate my fingers for one. And since this is a nice big opening, I can just reach in there with two fingers or one finger. And I'm just sort of, the motion is just rolling down across that area. Sandpaper is just like your cutting tools. It gets dull and actually gets dull relatively quickly. So I tore a piece of the end of it all. There is a bit of a transition right down there. I don't want to get rid of. And this always leaves, I'd love to talk to some of the people who do a ton of these. It's not really torn grain. At least I never figure it's torn grain, but there's places where the sort of end grain sticks out on the inside in these places. But to me, it's just a real bear to get actually sharpened. Or, yeah, sharpened. Sanded. So, let's see if we can be smart enough to sand in reverse inside. That'll also help break them little fibers that's sticking up there. Because that's what it is end grain fibers sticking right at you. So if I sand in both directions, it should, ouch, should generate a lot of heat when you push on it, which it did. So this got them better. Not perfect, but. So we'll just go through the grits with this as well. And I'd rather do it in forward. I really want my fingers at the top. As well as we'll sand this opening a little bit. I'm not really too concerned that there's going to be the radial scratches. Like if I was going to sand the outside of a bowl or something like that with this, then you're going to leave concentric rings, scratch pattern. Or in this case, you can't see them, so kind of one of them situations of why worry about what you can't see. It's going to be more like what they can touch. Trying to keep the sandpaper moving around so that we're not sitting in one place, just basically digging scratches. There's still that, definitely still that ridge down there where that little transition points out. So that's 400. And let me get a fresh piece of 600. And we're definitely going to call that good enough for that inside. I'll take it over here to my shop vac and suck the dirt out of it. And then we'll put a finish on that. And we might be about ready to wrap up the night. There was one other thing actually there's a couple other things I'd like to do before I quit, but I don't want to work too late because tomorrow is a work day. I'll make this edge up here nice and smooth. What better way to tell whether it's smooth than to touch it? If you cut your fingers, you know it's not smooth enough. Not really a great way of doing it. Definitely some, it's like tarn grain right there. Picked up, it's right on a, right on the typical area on the inside of a bowl where that would be sort of an area that you're going to disturb the grain more so than anywhere else. Be right back. Turn that dust collector off. Go over here and use my shop vac. It's going to allow me to get in there and get more of this dirt out of there. Hopefully we're not boring you to death with all the sanding, but the necessary evil. So now that's all the dirt's out, so now we can finish the inside. Of course, I got dust all over my fingers. I did have the outside clean. Oh well. So we'll go back and finish the inside. Same as what I did the inside of the bowl. It's going to be the 3408. And the inside of something like this, or even that bowl, I could do the same way. I won't be able to easily buff that in there. So then I will use some of the abrasive paste on the inside of this. I generally wait till it's set up and cured. In this case, I can do it. If it was something I needed to keep on moving with, then I could just give it a couple minutes and yes, it is. I've built cabinets and stuff like that for years, and it's like the wood turning is so much faster than building furniture and things like that. That's kind of where I sort of gravitated to it, I guess you'd call it, because I don't necessarily have the time to build furniture and stuff like that anymore. The work life doesn't necessarily give me that great big amount of time, and I sort of lost interest in it too a little bit. I mean, I've done some stuff for my daughter and stuff like that, and I have more stuff to do, but so what I'm doing is sort of saturating it in there from the best I can see. This is a no odor super glue with a 40-second time delay. In case you've never seen it before, that's what it is. Found it about 3 or 4 years ago and became a little difficult in some ways to get a hold of because it's sold through distributors like myself, sort of almost like private individual kind of distributors. There is some stores I think now that are carrying it, but it's really simple to use. It's one coat application. That's it. I mean, the inside of that is done except for the abrasive paste. And actually, if it come out smooth enough, just going to give it one little squirt. All you got to do is get the activation process started, and it'll follow itself around the whole complete thing. So this will end up being a project for another day again. So the inside is complete. It's finished natural, as you saw. Next step will be to make a lid for it. And we will have to think about that. The lid may take me 2 or 3 tries in some ways. I will probably start out with some curly maple for the lid and try and dye it a purple close to this. And then just a black knob finial type thing on top of it. But I won't take the tenon off. I won't take the tenon and finish the bottom of this until we can polish the inside. Once that's polished, then I can put it back. I could take the tenon off of it, and then I can play around with the lid for days or weeks or whatever it may take to get it complete. What I do need to do, though, the green one from earlier, where I get carried away, wrong chuck. I should say wrong size jaws. But I do have 3 of this size chucks, so I don't mess around changing jaws on them. My small one I do, but which was a good quality public sale find on 2 of these chucks. Yeah, that might have been the right size. Well, I'm gonna go in this one because all I gotta do is hold it. Because I'm gonna spray this with shellac. Make sure there's no dust boogers on it. Back the dust hood up a little bit. Get my towel. Cover the lathe bed, or the bed up with the paper towel. Or yeah, the paper towel. The towel. I'm gonna get my little bottle of shellac. This is what you call a very simple way of putting this kind of finish on this stuff. I do have a big sprayer to spray furniture with, and I could spray the shellac and stuff with that one. I mean, I can spray shellac with it. It's a little more cumbersome to clean than the simple airbrush. Go back to my dust collector. Dust collector is on. It goes into a cyclone, so it's not going directly to the dust collector. It's just more to keep the all the overspray heading in a direction away from me and also away from the camera above it. So you get one nice little light coat. Give it about a couple 30 seconds or a minute to start to set up. I also can spray, I use a water-based lacquer as a top coat. It actually looks like that's probably enough already. I'm going to give it one more little shot. And then that will be left sit. Actually, I won't, yeah, that'll probably be like along about maybe Monday for me. Because my Sunday is, I start work tomorrow. I work Sunday through Thursday. It's an alcohol-based product. Also gets, the cleaning can't be any easier. I can show you here in a second once that sets up a little bit more. And that's a siphon feed type of airbrush. I have one, actually now I have more than one because I broke down, I used to do that with the air compressor, and yes, Yes. Now, like in this case here, the shellac is, this is a seal, Zinsser seal coat shellac, which is a very thin de-wax shellac. That's about the sheen that I will get once I put the lacquer over top of it. I use a gloss lacquer. So that's pretty much about as shiny as generally is what it's going to get. It's going to, once the lacquer goes over top of it, it gives it a little, what do you want to call it, a little deeper luster maybe. Here's the real trick of trying to take it off without putting your paws all over it, because the shellac takes about 20 minutes or half an hour to actually dry. But from there, that'll get, like I say, 2 coats, maybe 3. Usually you can get them done in 2 because theoretically I already have 2 coats on it. I have 2 coats of shellac already on. Well, no, yeah. I already have 2 coats of shellac on that piece right now. So another 2 coats of lacquer over top of that, or whatever you may like to use. In my case, it is a water-based lacquer. Because all this stuff here, all these things you're seeing me do is all being done inside my house. So odor is a very large concern, and fumes. So I can't use the typical cellulose kind of a lacquer. Not to mention I can't stand the smell of it to start with. Oh, wait a minute. Did I want to put that away? I didn't. Maybe. This is the vase from the other week. And I don't think I held it in those draws, but those draws will work. Yes. So this is the, like I say, this is the vase I did about 3 weeks ago, I think it was. Something along those lines. It has its little wormholes and voids, and would make more sense if we went strictly overhead so you could see better. Oops. There we go. Hit the button twice. There we go. So this was hollowed the same way that I just did that little piece. The only difference is the opening down here is about 1.25 inches. Well, you're fortunate, because unfortunately I do. Some ways I wish I didn't, but everything has its pluses and minuses when it comes to that kind of stuff. My wife has always talked about that, me having an outside shop somewhere, and I'm like, yeah, that's nice, but then I have to worry about heating and air conditioning and all that stuff. As you can see, this thing has moved considerably, but it has already been sanded. It was sanded while it was still wet. And I really don't feel anything. I might take a little bit of, I was saying about that other little bowl. This is sort of a burl, highly figured piece of wood. So these figure lines here, if I run my finger across them, you can feel them right now. And you couldn't when everything was smooth. But I sort of thought it sort of gives it a little bit of a, I don't know, organic texture maybe. Right. Exactly. This is the hollow form that I did a couple weeks ago. And it was done green, or fairly wet. It wasn't sopping wet, but it was definitely had plenty of moisture in it. I think I'm going to take, I think I sanded it to 800 because as long, I don't see any place that would really warrant trying to sand it, because something like this you can sand them, even though they're that wonky and out of round or whatever. You could still sand that by hand because your fingers will just go up and over the humps and all that stuff. Be a little bit harder maybe to power sand something like this, but I certainly could sand it by hand, holding the sandpaper in my hand. This way I'm just going to do like a little random orbit sanding over it. This is 600 grit paper because I don't see anything that warrants. Well, maybe I do. There's little scratches up there. And that's probably really. As you can see, I can sand it. I could actually start over and sand this whole thing that way. And I know there's more issues were right up in here originally. But there were some definite scratch lines right there. Like I say, as a wood turner, you're always more critical of your own work than the person that may purchase this at a craft show or something like that. First off, most of them wouldn't even know what they're looking at. They just think it's pretty. So they would just basically buy it on an impulse kind of a buy or whatever. But I really should be doing more of the finish work than the green wood turning work right now, because we actually do have a craft show coming up in about probably about a month out, something like that. I think I already have sort of enough inventory. There's some little things that I would sort of like to have some of. One of which is tops, and I should have made one of them tonight. But it's getting late, so all I'm going to do is finish. I'm going to sand, and we're done sanding that anyhow. I'm going to wipe it off, and we're going to put some finish on that one, and then we are going to call it a day. I'll wipe off the dirt. Paper towel is actually very, very good absorbent. I mean, paper towel is absorbent anyhow, but it actually works quite well. I probably should actually take this one over to the shop vac. Looks like there's some dust down in there, but I don't think I'm not going to be that fussy about it. So I think this one I'm actually going to, wait a minute. We can't have that. There's a, like I say, fingers are the best tools in the world that you have, because it tells you everything. And there's a little bit of a wormhole right there that sort of sticking out right on the edge of that vase. And as I put my finger across there, that sucker was very, very sharp. I don't care that there's a wormhole there, or like there's a little bit of a bark inclusion or whatever that was. I just don't want those edges to be little razor blades that somebody's going to put their finger in there or run their finger across it and slice their finger. Because people always touch your stuff, especially at the craft shows. Unless it's something I don't want them to touch, then it's going to be up on the, I have shelves across and it's at the back of the table. And it's kind of a no touch area. There'll be things that are a little bit more delicate. And I don't want it knocked over or end up on the floor. This one I had to actually fill some of that in with some super glue originally. So all this area has super glue already embedded down in there. I was just thinking I might do the 3460 that I could actually put multiple coats on if I wanted to and get a really high gloss shine. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I can go back and do it anyhow. The 3408 will not allow me to put a second coat on. It won't. If it can't soak in, it doesn't know what to do, so it lays on the top of the surface. Like you just waxed your car and it rained on it and there's raindrops on it. That's pretty much exactly what it looks like. But the 3460 is a little bit thicker of a glue, and it will allow you to put multiple coats on, which is what most people do with pens and bottle stoppers and things like that. I'm not really much of a pen turner, but that's what most people like to do. That's people that are big in the pen world. That's what they have everybody convinced that you need to put a half a dozen coats of super glue on it, and then you sand it back and you polish it from there. And they don't like me because I could show them how to do a pen in one coat or two coats and get just as good of a shine as what they do. But that's neither here nor there. Okay. Had to cut up more felt. I use the polyester felt inside the paper towel for the reason of it gives me a little pad. What kind of oil? Right. You must be watching Richard Raffin. He loves that. He likes to put his boiled linseed oil and beeswax as his finish, which is to each his own. That is not the beeswax is not really it's not a durable finish. It's also not very shiny either once it's set up and all that good stuff. But I use some of that too myself. I do trees, make trees from tree limbs, basically. And I will do that. Oh, you're using the Osmo oil. Okay, yeah, it's over here. Stuff's kind of expensive. They consider them the hard wax oils. I don't know that it's really, unless you're putting beeswax over top of it. I would have thought that doesn't have beeswax in it. This is how you finish the inside of this vase as well, because it's all these little wormholes and all that. I want to make sure I get some glue down in there, just in case there might still be a little vermin in there, but most of them actually went the whole way through. So I'm sure I got some super glue running around the inside down there, but that's all good. Need to do up around this bark inclusion as well. Yeah, we have the Osmo oil. The other one would be Rubio Monocoat. I don't know about the Osmo, but I know one thing, that Rubio is what you call really expensive as far as I'm concerned. Okay. The beeswax or the Osmo? Beeswax shouldn't be expensive for you. You should have bees over there. The Osmo oil over here is expensive too, I think. I've seen it used. I've never jumped out at me to use it, to try it. Probably would work nice on small turnings like this. I see some people using that on the, what do they call them, charcuterie, the boards, that serving boards and stuff like that. See a lot of people using that on them. Not quite sure why they're using that particular product on them, but you said you don't have Rubio over there, correct? Rubio is real, really bad as far as price goes, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I'm sure it's a good product. Correct. That might be just a U.S. thing. It's sort of along the same same lines. Um, but oh my gosh, my local hardware store now started carrying it right down the street from me, and trying to think what it is. $80 a quart, something like that. And it comes in two parts. There's it's like a resin and a hardener, even though they're both very liquid. But so it's like if you're going to use it, then you're going to mix up what you need or what you think you need. You're going to use it because it has no shelf life once it's mixed, if I understood it correctly. From what I've ever seen anybody using it, that's just the way it was, the way it is. But they even have some of that now in colors. I don't know that they have a variety of colors. I think it's just like black and brown. Yeah, that's because my dad said about that a while back. He said, "Oh, I was watching somebody and they were doing some stuff and they were using that. It looked really nice and simple." I'm like, and he's using these CA products that I have, and I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "But you're a cheap old man." I said, "You ain't paying the price for it." He says, "What do you mean?" I said, "Yeah, you know, the little pint can was like $30 or $40 or something like that." I'm like, "So I don't think you want to go out there and buy that." He goes, "Oh, I guess not." I'm like, yeah, I don't want to buy it. There's a guy on YouTube, the Blacktail Studio, that does a lot of the. His thing is the big resin tables, the slab tables. He's the first one I saw using it, you know, and you put it on and you basically buff it in and wipe off the excess. And I think they do have one that has a little bit of a gloss to it or something or other, or a little bit of a shine to it. But for the most part, I think it's really just a matte type finish. There is no real shine to it, period. But now there's one, I don't know that he said who's making that one. There's one that actually is UV cured, which I think is even more expensive yet. And you have to buy the UV light. I did not spray it. But he's sort of an interesting kind of a guy to watch. I've learned quite a few things on the epoxy. I'm sort of just now starting to play around a little bit with the epoxies as far as some of the work that that I would be interested in. Them deep pour epoxies dry so slow. I'll show you a piece here in a second. I did. When did I do that? Yesterday. So once again, that'll sit at least 24 hours. In my case, it'll probably be maybe next Friday or something. Like I say, I want to play with some of the deep pour epoxies. Because I think some of the stuff, some of the, like the serving trays and stuff like that, I think some of that stuff is kind of neat. I really like some of the stuff that some of the people have done with turning wise. Just let that in the chuck for the moment. But the stuff is expensive. I mean, there's no real ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's all pretty expensive to try. So what I did, they should be back further, but that's okay. I mixed up. The one guy told me, because I like to ask questions. I ask questions. Correct. I get that part. Yeah, I think the Osmo has different sheen levels, I think, what I remember. So I have a bigger piece. I didn't bring that along. Actually, I have a couple pieces that I'm messing around with. But the one fellow that I saw on one of the social medias, I asked him some questions, and I see these people doing this kind of stuff. Let's zoom out here so we can see a little better. And I see him putting a coat of something on the surface that they're going to pour epoxy onto ahead of time. So I asked him the question, is like, well, and he's like, that's to prevent less air bubbles coming up through there, because it's gonna soak into the wood, and which creates air bubbles. So if you have a barrier basically in between that, you're better off. So I mixed up a teeny tiny little container of the deep pour epoxy, brushed it on with just a little acid brush. As you can see, the shiny spots here and there, they're both still, yes, that's what I got out, and they're finally actually dry. They're still shiny right there though. So I mixed up that little thing because it has little, it was some sort of a mixing cup for something or other, and we got just an absolute ton of them. They're like a little half shot glass or something. But this stuff gets mixed 2 to 1, so that becomes a little bit more challenging as far as I'm concerned. So I mixed it up and I brushed that on, and I didn't think it would go. I probably, in hindsight, says I probably should have sealed all the way around it and the bottom. And I might still do that some other night this week or something or other. But I had all this, I mixed that tiny little thing up, and I barely used any of it to do that. So the brain jumps into gear and says, well, one way to do a lidded box and have an interesting effect on the top is to put some epoxy in there with some color or maybe some swirl to it or whatever. So the first piece I grabbed was this guy here. This is a piece of maple that has some ambrosia in it. I didn't see that earlier. It's interesting. But at any rate, brought it, I threw it in the truck quick, took a box scraper, scraped out a little recess. Recess is only about 1/8 of an inch deep. Put some green mica powder and some of the sparkly stuff in it, and poured that in there. I'm like, oh, well, shoot, that's, I still had half this container left. So this piece was actually dye stabilized. This is spalted maple. So I grabbed that and did the same thing with it. And as you can see with this one, since it was stabilized, it had nowhere for the epoxy to soak into. So it stayed where it belonged. And it's, that piece, you can see my fingerprint in it. That's been 24 hours and it is still sticky. It's less sticky than what it was earlier today, but this stuff takes, I can't imagine these guys that are pouring this stuff 3 inches deep, because I think they said it takes like 2 or 3 days for it to dry. But at any rate, I went on about my business, and this was yesterday when I did this, and I went and got this wood, and I come back, and I'm like, because there's no hurry with this stuff. I can play around with it for hours. I come back to find this. This thing has totally saturated down into the wood because this was not sealed underneath that. And I'm like, well, that's just weird. But now I see today that dark spot was not there. So that's epoxy that has found a place to go down into the grain. So that's a bit different. But now I could probably, if I mix up more of this stuff to seal the rest of that up, then I'll fill the rest of the top of this one. But it's all about learning, so. Oh yeah, yeah, because that's end grain. That's all end grain right there that's sticking up at you. So it, and it's hard. It's it's not a hard maple. It's more of a softer maple. But I had to put some of the clear on there first, just sort of as a sealer or whatever, and it literally disappeared. So I'm like, well, that's interesting, but it sort of is what it is. I do have to take this vase off this chuck though, because if there's any of that trusty little super glue that gets down there, super glue will glue wood to metal. So this will be another next week project kind of thing. So get buffed, and then we'll come up with a logical way of taking the tenon off of it. I have some pretty simple ways of doing that. But other than that, that is going to be a wrap for me tonight. Unless anybody has any other kind of questions or comments. Looks like JMB is on tonight. Actually, first I got to go over. This is being broadcast on Twitch as well as YouTube. I do have a YouTube channel as well. And this is being broadcast there as well. No problem. I'm here Saturday evenings. That's my deal. That's my day to come and stream. And if you're watching it on YouTube and you could hit that nice little button that says subscribe, that would be wonderful. Other than that, Saturday evening, 6 o'clock Eastern time is sort of my time to do things. And I try and do something different every week. So, oh, thank you very much.